what I want to just introduce is inspired by the theme of the conference or symposium, is this axis of time. This is narrative. The story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This is seriously time. This is a real, explicit representation. That's 10 seconds. That's 7 seconds. That's 11 seconds. So you're looking at space-time. And what I noticed is that a bunch of things that you don't see when you look out at the ocean appear. Little reflections going right out through the surf zone were quite a lot more obvious. So I'm trying to use a tool that's quite intriguing, and I found that it's becoming something that we've got to really quantify. So we took it to a wave tank, wave generators, and we wanted to see if we could measure the waves and try and understand how reliable the method was. And what we initially took were floats, simplest concept in the world, passive. And I want to mention this now because we can extend this to the open ocean where there's nothing. And you track a known scale length through time, the red and the green sampling lines, you can see them here, red and green, track the motion. Now what was an interesting spin-off is it was 10 times more accurate than the state-of-the-art probes using capacitance and resistance. So suddenly, instead of putting fancy probes in the water and paying a lot of money to the French and the Canadians, you could now take a camera and scan a scene and get wave amplitude and period 10 times more accurately in multiple places. What an application that could fund the development was building a harbour, and I'll move to Mother Nature now, but this was interesting because every vessel has a whole bunch of motion. You've got roll, pitch, yaw, and you have heave, surge, and sway. And the idea was just to quantify that and see which proposed harbour best sheltered the ships, point one, which proposed harbour suffered the least damage in a 1 in 10 year storm, using conventional cameras. Then I wanted to apply that to a scene that the shark spotter said, this is no problem, there's a shark. Now this is an extreme event. It's usually a bit more subtle. You don't see the shark easily. So the question was, could you have a system that was one of the tools in the toolbox that told you when you could fall back on, as a function of clarity, seeing conditions, a method to warn potentially bathers. So please just look carefully at this. It's mentally difficult to see because this is the way it is. That's a buoy. This is an array of floats that hold the source of pulsed field. That's a reference buoy. This is over 100 meters, and the idea is if you took this away, is there such a thing as a shark highway? Do sharks come predominantly from one side, swimming past? If you had this perfect tool, would you eventually establish a shark highway? What are the habits? If you put this in water, because anything can swim through it, would that change them? And if you activate the pulse array, would that introduce a third behavior? So you need to get stats here. And the thing about stats is they don't work well if there are very few samples. And we were looking for white sharks. And what was interesting is the ray is sitting here. A little bit of kelp floating in the water. You don't normally see these things. This is shark 1. Remember, it's a narrative, it's a story. This is the beginning, and that's the end, and this is time. And a lot of these sharks would swim, and they'd get close to the net, and then there'd be a sign of turnaround. Okay? But once swallows make summer, so how many sharks do we need to work out the behavior? Here's another shark, shark 2. And that we found it was difficult to have a big basin of attraction to look at a small change. So here, and I've got one exciting result that came out yesterday, so I thought I had to switch to this presentation. Shark 1, okay, not so easy to see. Shark 2, here. Shark 3, hit shallow water and turned around suddenly, and then went back into deep water. You can leave the sampling area by coming in and going out on either side. So the point is, if a line disappears, the shark doesn't disappear, it's just left the sampling area. Now what we want to do is show that when they a certain distance from the array, that is t equals 0, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that interval is 30 seconds. You can track these very subtle shades. Now, just to explain, and I know this looks like garbage or modern art or kinderkunst, but just imagine you wanted to photograph a train and it's shooting past. You would pan your camera with it. So the concept now is you've got a scene and it's wide field, you can't see small signatures, but if you imagined taking a camera and panning slowly with a shark that made the water slightly darker, you'd eventually get a better signature, like panning with a train. So what the software does, and it number crunches at an incredible rate, is it says, assume it's moving so fast and it's so big, and it scans all the data through time, and you start getting resonances. So it picked this up. What's exciting here is shark 2 didn't disappear out the sampling area, it turned around and swam away from the pulsed array, and then it hit shallow water and dead. So there were actually 2 sharks, not 3, as people thought initially. So the idea is, here's a tool. You can see if a bird flies past, one bird, in the distance, you'll suddenly see that trajectory of the bird. So if you want to know how many times something happens, and you want to know how fast they go, this is a useful tool. Here you can see a couple of events. This was seal, there were some sharks, here were some people in the water. This is bits of kelp floating. So you still need a champion who actually understands the ocean and the motion and the different species and phenomena, but it's a nice record through time. Just to explain carefully now, this is typically the scene. So you'll have the railway line down here. This is at the top, Elsie's Peak camera, and here's your array. And we're trying to build up stats. And this experiment is finished. And there weren't that many sharks, but what I'd like to do is follow up in the last presentation, Coastwatch. Any feed that maintains a continuous vigil will allow you to do this. You lock onto the mountains or the horizon, and each pixel becomes a place in the ground. And what we found is that you can't use Mickey Mouse cameras. You want resolution that's definitely a little bit higher than HD. There have been some HD tests, and we've also got some interesting results, but 7 frames a second is sufficient. You don't need to go live, and you need about 3 megapixels now. And suddenly, you don't have to cheat. You don't have to say, there's a shark, then make a movie of the shark. You can look at the whole scene, and anything coming into it, subject to water clarity, can be visible. Okay? So what we're doing here is just another little test. No one saw anything here. Looking down in Fisher, this is a patch of water. Of course, a bay is never square. We've done a lot in terms of projecting and masking out trees, just detail. But if you look at this patch of water, there were 2 skates. And the range of the skates stayed fairly stable through time for about 7 minutes. If you look at the bearing of those skates, where they were left, right, as opposed to up, down, you'll see here they were, and then they switched positions and kept swimming on. So these are things you don't normally see, and it's sometimes worth analyzing it. Sometimes it's very difficult depending on sea state. I don't want you to worry about all the words, but just think of what's colored or underlined. Vision systems. If you're a shark spotter, it's not the kind of thing you can keep up for 12 hours without looking down and turning away. If you look down, Murphy applies, a fin can come and go, and you look up and it's gone. If you've got this transit representation, it'll leave a signature. So how brief? Anything that's near the surface with the right polarizing lens. And what's interesting is the water is almost an order of magnitude clearer if you go to the near infrared, it gets opaque. If you go to the ultraviolet, just into the ultraviolet, it gets more transparent. And you have to have the right filter and you can see more. So we need to understand, when is this useful? Under what conditions? And you want to measure visibility. And you want to look at case studies. So we've done 3 different projects, and there's some nice results. This is a scan into the harbour, where you can see each square is 5 seconds long and 1 meter high. So between this wave and that wave is 2 squares, 10 seconds. And you'll see typically a wave comes in through time, gets bigger, and approaches the coast. Another wave comes in, big waves go a bit faster. It's the sun rising at the same time. Anything that enters the area leaves a little signature. And what's useful is if you click on the signature, you can see the offending clip. So it's a data mining tool. Here you can see tracking in heavy seas. We can see the buoys, we can see the array. Very difficult to see far down. Near the coast, of course, it's very clear that's a seal. You can see the signature on the right. That would be a typical sampling area, and these will be typical signatures. So I just wanted to introduce this interesting concept and try and make the case for bringing cameras into the prime real estate where they can look down and not budge, typically behind glass, like citizen science. No expensive tower, no solar panels and batteries get stolen, just someone who's going to keep a camera safe in a room with a view. And then you analyze that feed and you'll see whales. We've seen 80 whales a day for 5 days in a row in July. And this kind of tool, I think, is cost effective as well. Thank you.